create a new pilot, okay, and a UTEP for this. And I'll just touch base on a couple notes that I have. Um, it said, and I'm just taking off some of the bullets that I've talked to people in the past over the last year and a half here. So, nearly half of all renters spend 30% of their income on rent, okay? Um, there's a lot of need. The three common denominators that I spoke to with people over the past, they had three things. And the three things it all came back down to each time was zoning reform, okay? Land value tax, which isn't really a popular thing to tell anybody, okay? And once it got really thoroughly explained to me, I could see why, okay? And once again, more housing subsidies. Subsidies, subsidies, subsidies. That's how they end their conversations all the time. So, you know, also that we're all familiar that new businesses tend to skip potential areas of expansion. They base it on your housing availability. And right now, it's not just Ulster County. Taking effect. Um, some of the notes that I do have, um, I think that we need to determine what the public would like to see in potential policy programs, um, locations, what types of policies dictate the IDA benefits from housing projects, public input, and we want it. We want written submissions on that. And this is all notes that I'll send over to you guys, and you guys, everybody can add on it. This is going to be a work in progress. We'll also have to circle Rashida and Steve in on the housing work group, okay, and get some input from them also. Um, we're going to need criteria for housing projects, okay. We're going to have to, once again, create a housing policy, okay. It was suggested to us a long time ago that if you're creating a pilot for housing, that it should mirror the benefits afforded in the RPTL, okay, the Real Property Tax Law of 581A. And what that does is, if we formalize that into the program and implement it, and I don't have the current one in front of me, but in there it says you have to get the approval of these taxing jurisdictions. But I'm thinking I'm reading the old one I have. It currently says the agency is responsible for getting that approval, and that's not so. The applicant is responsible, and I think we're currently doing it with a project that's in the queue down here in Marlboro. So could you just check that, okay, when you get a chance? Um, a new uniform tax exempt policy, okay, which I think goes without saying. Possibility of creating a second housing pilot that encourages mixed income development, expand the current language, require a minimum percentage of affordable units, okay? The reuse of existing properties. I mean, Tech City is a shining example of what's going on. Sure. Feasibility studies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lynn's touched base on that before. So, that is in here. So, we also need to ensure that the but-for analysis included all other economic development benefits, okay? We got to make sure somebody's going everywhere, okay? We've done this with the old board. We talked about it. The Kingstonian was the one on it, a third-party analysis. I think that's a safe bet as we're moving ahead with housing. And then we have to remember to match the tax benefits, for any priorities in the community. But that's just like basic stuff that I have here, okay? And just trying to get a lay of the land here, because this is it's going to take a village. So, to create this, okay? And you guys, everybody put their heads together here in the organizational chart. You guys hit it out of the park. So this is some stuff that we want to jump off on. I have another binder here, and it's got the Ulster County median income. It's got all the numbers in here. We know what we're up against. We all know what's going on out there, in the world. So I don't think this is the entity to solve the housing crisis, but I do believe we can help. And we can partner up with the county. Tim Wiedemann, Tim is always, a great essential part of what we're doing. So,
I had a brief conversation.
I'll open it with you guys. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. I had a brief conversation with Tim about that too, so I updated him that we will be having this conversation. I think to me, I'll of course go through your points. To me, it's really about how do we think about it long term?
Yeah.
Both such that it's equitable and it resonates with the community. And Mike, this is not me picking on anything.
No.
I'm just citing a number you mentioned. It's 35% of your paycheck goes towards rent. I looked at it a while ago as well. It's really 35% of median and above earners goes
Good
to
point. Good point. Yeah.
that. People who earn less, they end up paying a lot more.
Right.
So I think we need to think about inclusion and equity from that standpoint as well, just not from the perspective that a certain demographic or certain earners only, but how does that actually flow for the whole community? And that's the only thing. The other thing, it's kind of interesting you bring it up because Tim and I extremely briefly for a second touched on certain funds being available from certain revenues to be able to do the things you were mentioning, either through IDA or outside vendors. So those two things I really want to focus on.
Yeah, and even speaking with Dennis, and we really do, we have to figure out an avenue to incorporate some job growth with the housing, with the mixed use. You know what I mean? So we've got to get a little inventive here.
Not only from the standpoint that you're thinking about, that mixed use versus others, but also thinking about what kind of organizations we are having conversations with. So example being Zinc 8. And how can we marry that requirement with the needs here? Because if we want to drive growth in certain areas, we have to be mindful of what type of housing it is as well. So we'll have to think broadly, I think.
I think that between Lynn dealing with this problem, Lynn, how long were you on the legislative team there?
6 years.
6 years. I think with Lynn's
This is
knowledge
a
in this.
20-year-old plus problem. So
Oh, yeah.
it's not something that
No.
we're definitely going to fix overnight. But I think the real question is our role in helping to reduce costs of apartments. Can we incentivize builders to build quicker and productively? And I think we have to at also land use in different towns. Are there opportunities there, and can we incentivize those? I mean, I see our role as incentivizing and reducing the bill, helping to remove any um, uh, zoning limitations. I think that's where we can add some value, and
Yes.
it's going to be tricky on how we structure that.
Yeah, I agree, and like I touched base on that too. Zoning reform was a real hot topic every time you're talking to people in different areas, and I agree with you 100%.
And we are seeing that already in a few counties, that there's a perspective and view towards change in the current zoning. I
Mhm.
think we have to be mindful with respect to the zone categories, how we utilize the land as well.
Right.
Because there might be certain areas where you might need, for the lack of a better term, transitory housing, if you may, or transient housing, where the workers are coming from other areas. Whereas in other locations, you might actually want to focus on long-term housing. And that affects other facilities like healthcare or schooling and other aspects of it.
And then we're up against a couple other things on new development also, which everybody's aware of, is the materials.
That's right.
Where you used to be able to go out and just get your materials and have a 4, 5, 6 week turnaround, it is now 7, 8, 9 months if it's not a year.
If you're getting it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Correct. So, I mean, we're never gonna. We can't. We really don't. We can't have a skin in the game on that. You know what I mean? Ours to do exactly what Lynn said is to put our best foot forward and incentivizing the right things to get people to come here to develop.
Yeah, it's the private versus public and private and public partnership, right?
Yes.
So we don't have to.
Well, and you've got the land bank on the legislative
Exactly.
side.
Correct.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you good.
On the land bank on the legislative side, which is just, it's not quite structured yet, but even there, helping to incentivize homes that are being taken off the tax rolls or foreclosed on, not always a bad situation, but what can we do to help the legislature when they're renovating these homes? Also, there's been a lot going on recently on all different levels of pre-build off-site and bringing to the site, framed walls, et cetera, which can expedite the build-out of, smaller homes. I had a recent conversation with a builder about, who has been doing a lot of high-end and saying, look, we've got a housing crisis. Is there a way of doing more houses on smaller lots, and getting them done quicker so we have opportunities for sale or rental, if it's affordable for some, and that may mean helping to structure, loan packages for those individuals. I know RUPCO worked with a lot of folks, helping them to get their credits under control and then helping them on a path to home ownership. So I think there's a couple of things that we can incentivize in this process. We should be looking at what everyone's doing and where we may have a role in helping them. I think that's one of the things versus trying to come out and saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. I think we need to also understand what some of these other groups are doing so
Correct.
we can look at how we can help what they're envisioning through incentivization and other things. Even finding, I think there's a couple local companies, and Mike, you may know this, that are doing these prefab off-site builds of walls and framing and then shipping to site so a house can go up faster.
Yeah, we have, believe it or not, a lot of those come out of New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
And Lynn.
I thought there were a couple. I thought there was, maybe not the manufacturing side of it, but just the sales side of it. I thought there were a couple, like one in New Paltz. Somebody was saying there's something in Poughkeepsie and further upstate that they're doing some innovative things on trying to, build quality homes, but most of it off-site and kind of link and log it together on-site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot. I see it a lot in commercial building. Stand-up walls and everything. It all gets shipped in and it goes right up. That's why we pop these big box stores and big warehouses up overnight. But on a smaller end, it's been a while since I've been out there and I've seen a lot of any kind of housing development going on, modulars, anything to that effect.
And Lynn, to your earlier point, I think both Mike and I were agreeing with you, not to get into the details of the minutia, who might be available and things like that, but I think we just have to be extremely creative with respect to not only setting the policy and the protocols, but also understanding what hardware, for the lack of a better term, might be available to, as you were saying, what are the options to build? So are there any creative options with respect to singular unit but multi-structures on the same land? Or is there anything that can be done for the same building where there are apartments, as Mike was alluding to? Or even potentially, and this is just an example, or even potentially allowing some certain zoning for certain acquired assets, like the tax liens that the county has acquired, can we rezone? And I know Land Bank is already thinking about those things.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can guide that and set it in the protocols, that might be helpful, in addition to understanding what other counties have done or other towns have done.
Yeah, I know Dutchess
Don't
County.
we have the ability? Don't we have the ability as an agency to purchase land,
Yep.
swaths of land, and can So we should think about if we were to do that, what could happen?
Exactly.
What's on the site, would not that we would necessarily become landlords, but can we incentivize a developer through
Right.
a land deal with them that will help build small houses or apartment buildings, etc. So I think there's other things we can look at because we have the ability to purchase land. I thought.
Well, in a straight lease where somebody's already ascertaining the financing and stuff like that, we have the ability to take title of the land, the real property, improvements, and we can do whatever we want to make the project exempt from certain taxes. I believe that I'm correct on that,
And I
right?
think we should be able to put some call and put options in there such that if there's an
Yeah.
event, we are not disadvantaged as a county, such that the benefit is balanced.
And that's why I like the fact that we I'll go back to I'll go back to the fact that we could, like, let's say if we had a TIF, a tax increasement finance. So what we could do there is, once again, is we could include that in part of the pilot payment, okay? And that could be direct money returning back to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in the future, can go to subsidize, whatever, infrastructure work, the land, and, there's some creative ways to get through this, because I don't want anybody to lose track. We still have the UCCRC, okay? So, and we did pass a policy also to have shared services or shared funding with
Yep.
them. So, there's tools in the toolbox here.
There's a lot that can be done, and
Yeah.
we don't have to have aspirations that are potentially unachievable, but if we do it right, it could again set a model for how others do
Well,
it.
and there, I'll steal Lynn's thunder, like she says, on most of the things we put together here, they're living documents.
They
You know
are.
what I mean?
They
are. And they're always works in progress.
Mhm.
So, there's always an amendment, there's something coming in, to make sure it gets more solidified.
Yes,
And
and
it's here for a long time.
as you said earlier, we would love to hear from outside the
And you
community
know
as
what?
well.
Yeah, you know what? I think that would be really good. We get some viewpoints. Maybe our next meeting, on housing. I'd like to touch base with Rashida and Steve. And if they're available, get some written comments. Anything. I know sometimes everybody's schedule is a little hairy. I'd like to have Dennis come on in. Okay.
Tim?
I'd like to have Tim come on in. So and get their because.
I'm wondering.
And Land
Mike,
Bank.
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Mike, I'm wondering if we can reach out to you know the legislature as well as the executive branch and get a listing and even check in with the town of supervisors to see are there housing groups in the communities and in the executive branch, legislative branch, and find out what groups have been put together to work on it, and do a check-in with those groups of, where are they at in the process? Have they come up with ideas? Are they looking for financing? Just to me, we should be kind of responding to what others are putting together in our role of the agency versus us trying to come up with here's what we should be doing for housing. I think if we have a better understanding of what the land bank doing, what some of the housing committees at the exec level, what the towns are doing individually, kind of doing that kind of homework, I think that will benefit whatever we all put together.
I can go back through our notes from the old board. I know that we sent out a questionnaire to all the taxing jurisdictions, supervisors, town people, the schools.
Oh, okay.
We sent that out and we asked for their input moving ahead on not only on all these projects, how they felt about it. And I'll have to find it. Yeah, I may have to contact the old chair unless our current chair, Diane, knows where to find it, okay? But it's here somewhere. And I'd be honest with you, Lynn, I think if we got 15% response, we've got a lot. So people just didn't.
Maybe if
we can follow up.
Maybe if we divvy it up between all
Yep.
of us,
Correct.
do some outreach, even phone calls.
Yeah, exactly. And I know we put it out there because, things were contentious there for a while, I mean, and we wanted input. So I don't think we really got the input.
Yeah, no, we can follow
I
up.
know a lot of the towns have changed codes to include accessory buildings on properties, which was a biggie. So I know that has been happening, but I also know, Woodstock has a very active group looking at the housing shortage there.
Yep.
I know Rochester had a team looking at it. I'm not sure where they are at or what progress was made, but maybe it's a good idea for us to do some outreach and checking in with these different communities to find out, what other things have happened out there, and are they looking at something that we could help them with?
So, Lynn, that's actually an excellent point because yesterday, town of Rochester was to have a meeting regarding zoning, and that was postponed because of the snow, etc. So I'm already in touch with a few folks there because I've been attending some of the meetings. To your point, I think not only Woodstock and others, I think we should also be reaching out to certain local academic institutions if we need to at the right time to understand if there is anything related to public development that we should be mindful of.
Yeah, we have a nice task ahead of us here.
Yeah, a lot of it, and which
So,
is good.
It is good. It is
We're
good.
doing
It's,
something about it.
Like I think I mentioned it the first day the whole board was together. The only people that are going to pat us on the back are ourselves. So, but I think we have a good team here to do this, and I will share all my notes with everyone, and everybody will just keep going from there.
Yep.
And I know the holidays are right here upon us, and you're going to be going out of town, correct?
I'm out beginning the 4th through the 25th of January.
Okay.
Not December.
Okay.
I'm here for December.
So you know what? We'll have to, like I said, we can always trade information.
But I'll be available.
Okay.
I'll have access. I'll join via
Okay.
Zoom, etc. as well.
Great.
Yep.
Great. So, anybody have anything else you want to talk about with housing? Anything right now?
No, I think this was very good discussion, and
Yeah.
I'll actually initiate some of the conversations locally and even
And
people I know.
you know what? I have one other person that I'd really like to come to this table because I got to tell you something. I really value her input. Okay, is March Gallagher, and
Sure.
March has always been very good when she's got her finger on the pulse, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
So we can get together as a board here or a committee, and we can start trying to schedule some people to come in. We don't want to overload ourselves because we'll be in here for 4 or 5 hours. We don't want to do that. Amber will quit. So, okay.
Just while we're on this, actually, just one last comment. I think alludes to what Lynn was saying earlier about credit.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we can also include certain banking institutions and understand how
I
we
think
can
you're right.
help
We'll have a
facilitate
little.
that. That's right.
We'll have a little order. They'll take a couple meetings. You know what I mean? One thing I do know, I know our bylaws or constitution says that we have to meet. The governance committee has to meet at least twice a year. So I think we meet
so we
twice a
checked
month right now. So it's kind of good. We've been on a little, and part of that is my fault too. I've been running all over the place in different directions. But we'll get back on track now, and as long as you guys don't mind, we'll schedule these meetings.
I live 30 minutes away.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. All right.
No, this is good discussion.
Okay. So. Okay, we'll go on to new business. So, new business, we have RFPs here. Okay, and I direct your attention to page 6. And it's a request for proposal for accounting services. Amber, you want to lead the charge on this one?
So to construct this RFP, I took a lot of the language from the adopted organizational chart and the presentation that the governance committee had created and shared with the board. So most of this language is taken directly from that and should be very consistent and very familiar. The other things that are added are more day-to-day operations. Just basically any and all accounting services that need to be kept up with at a minimum on probably a bi-weekly basis, but a minimum of a monthly basis.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions on this RFP for?
I do have one suggestion. I think we should somewhere, and I have read it once.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read it again, but I think we should address somewhere the component of risk management and financial controls
Okay.
together, because
Go ahead.
in
I'm
my
sorry.
opinion, be it an outside vendor or whosoever it is, should be responsible for those things because that has to be signed. And if we include that at the onset, that'll be helpful. You were going to say something, Mike?
No, I thought we had an umbrella policy that already covered something like that, but
Oh, I was not thinking about insurance. I was thinking more around risk management, actually, by the vendor. Because
Oh.
if they're viewing all the accounting, all the procedures, etc., in cash, so there has to be a risk
Okay.
management controls there. Len, I don't know if you heard me. My throat is a little down today.
No, I did hear you.
All right.
But risk management typically, as in my experience, has always been separate from the financial and from the auditing. So it's almost been a standalone. But that could be just because I've worked in bigger corporations versus a small agency such as this. But I almost feel like in some ways that there could be some conflicting issues with the finance people kind of also looking at the risk management.
yeah.
I was, so just,
I don't know.
No,
I'm
no,
not
no,
a
you're right.
finance expert,
You're
so-
right. In fact, I should qualify. This is more about the responsibility and accountability as defined by UCIDA rather than the vendor coming up with certain controls and procedures.
So,
Excuse me.
I'm not quite sure how that would look.
Yeah, I mean, would that,
You know, I mean,
isn't that basically already formatted in what Amber put together? I mean, basically, that's almost the management plan. I mean, you know what I mean? But I see what you're saying. I agree with Lynn.
I think maybe I'm saying that we should just be explicit about it, and that'll help. But I can think about it and discuss more.
You know what? We could always touch base.
Yeah.
You know, and see if we need to add anything to it.
But
Right now,
otherwise-
it's clean and it's precise, and it's taken from current policy that we have. So,
And otherwise, I'm in good.
okay.
well, and maybe
Continue.
Amber has a way of also looking at it. I would ask that, does Amber have a perspective
Right.
as our CPA to see is there a way of defining that more specifically within the context of this?
And I can work with you, Amber, on that. Because you see these things on a daily basis, especially with Paris Report, etc. And
That, I was just going to say, she should have full knowledge of that dealing with Paris,
does.
right?
She
So,
does. Yep.
okay. And then the next RFP that we'll bring before the board is audiovisual and technology services.
So this again is, the basis for this is the presentation on the organizational structure that the governance committee recommended and was adopted by the full board. And what we added or articulated is what we've been doing on behalf of the agency.
So that's really, if I could, that's really the live streaming. But I didn't catch, and maybe because I glanced at it quickly, I may have missed. Does it also include, the maintenance and potential further enhancements of the websites and everything?
Yes.
yes, it does.
Okay.
You know, the only thing I had,
I see it in, yeah.
Yeah.
Lynn, Mike, the only thing I had in what Amber proposed, I like this and I agree that this is something from a precedent. And this kind of relates to what we were talking about a few minutes ago from a job development standpoint, etc. For this particular RFP, again, this is a question or not even a suggestion at this point. Should we be a little more open to and inclusive of younger companies and younger professionals perhaps? Because if you look at point 5, the 5 largest clients your firm has lost,
Mm-hmm.
some of the vendors who might be really good or are early starters, they may not have had those many clients just yet or that many years in service. So unless and until this is a legislative requirement or a legislative change or action, is there some room, at least in our mind, to be able to incorporate those entities or include those entities?
So, reading number 5, the 5 largest, we have lost in the past 3 years, and the reasons, we haven't really lost anywhere near that number, right? We've lost, we terminated
This would be for them.
from the vendor,
Whether
from the
they
vendor
have
stuff.
lost anybody.
Okay, so our other problem, I think, is going to be is that I don't believe there's 5 in this area. So I mean, I know that the 3, I know of 3.
Mike, no, I think
Yeah.
it's about the vendor
Yeah.
proposing that have they lost any business in the last
I
few
get
years?
that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying who's going to, with this RFP when we put it out there. You know what I mean?
Can I?
Please, yes.
Can I interject? One thing I'm thinking about, and I know we're getting into specifics. I wanted to step back a second here.
Yep.
I was part of the working with Rachel and Rashida on the communication strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and in the context of that, which I think you're all going to see at this upcoming meeting. One of the things that we're looking at is a whole list of communication activities and things that the board has to help framing about what are, for shorthand, what are elevator speeches about what we do as an IBA and what our focus is. And to me, in part of that is also upgrading our website, and that I feel like this may require a little bit broader view, because one of the things that when you look at the details on the communication plan, I think our committee is in a position that there's a lot of work to be done that no one person could do, particularly because we're still in the building phase of our support staff, that it may make sense to go out and get a communications firm that's good with the communication, that has the technology capability. A lot of them are marrying the two and helping to set up marketing websites, communication websites for corporations. I feel like this may need to include some elements from the communication piece, and I think that we should consider putting that in here, or a place mark in here that we agreed to pending that, so that we have something to go out with this meeting, because we're running short on time, and I think that would be really helpful. Just a thought. I'm throwing that out there. I know you guys have not seen the communication plan, but one of the things that we all talked about is, given the laundry list of what we're trying to accomplish, we could accomplish it quicker, faster, and perhaps better by including a firm that can help us kick it off the ground, and then the maintenance of that becomes part of the team we are putting together.
So you then with that
I
new
threw a lot at you. I'm sorry about
yeah,
that.
no, with your new component that you have going on in here that you want to introduce into this, so that changes pretty much the dynamics of this RFP.
Well, it's not just. It's not just. Yeah, it could. It basically, I guess it could.
Yeah, I would say it would.
I think I would agree with Mike. I haven't
Yeah.
looked at that
Yeah.
at all, but at the same time, to me, this is more about a defined service rather than consulting and communication. But we should think about that, Lynn.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm averse to it. I just don't know enough about it to comment.
No, it needs to be a different RFP. As I'm looking at some of this stuff, I mean, I see it setting it up. It's it's facilitating the meetings, all of that. But then you're going into maintenance of the website. Well, so it's all maintenance. Okay. I mean, I think it'll be fine.
Now, Lynn, I'm not saying that.
hire all these people.
I'm not saying your suggestion is a bad suggestion. There's no bad suggestions. What I'm saying is,
No. I totally get it. I threw you guys. I just kind of threw in what something else we were working on that may have
Yeah.
an impact on this. And I'm throwing it out for discussion.
I'm
Does it make sense to consider?
I'm looking at a timing is of the essence.
I'm
So
thinking of it for facilitating
Yeah.
speed, because anything that has to go out there would have to come through governance anyway,
Mhm.
right? So that's why I was trying to say, is there a way of facilitating this in a
Mhm.
timely fashion so that we're not losing ground? We don't have to wait another month for an RFP on the other.
right.
And I think to your point, Lynn, what we could do potentially is put a placeholder for discussion about how we should partner these services.
Amended.
And to your point about, no, exactly, amend them.
That's all.
And
We're the kings of that.
maintenance versus UI, UX, sorry, user interface and user experience, right? Because that should be driven by the board and the governance committee, how we want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can leave a placeholder behind, which is essentially an amendment and addendum.
Yes, I agree. And then, well, when is our board meeting here? Next Wednesday?
This Wednesday.
No, next.
Oh,
Next
next
week.
Wednesday, 20.
Next Wednesday. So you know what? We'll introduce
Between
your.
now and then, maybe we can.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's exactly right. Yep.
There could be an addendum hooked to this RFP,
Mhm.
and that'll keep it clean.
Yep.
Ask for a little bit more here or whatever. Amber will tweak it out, and then, But right now, we're gonna. This committee will move ahead, and we'll introduce these RFPs to the full board on the 21st.
21st, yeah.
Okay.
And just to add to that, I think, Amber, it could be something like you could either provide both services, and we should discuss before we finalize, or singular service as we have detailed.
Right. Maybe a vendor doesn't check
Right.
all the boxes.
Right.
So.
It could be a consulting firm that provides communication consulting, however, provides AV services and all this as well, or they're two parties. We can discuss.
Yeah, I mean, we had a consulting service help us facilitate the development of the strategic plan, but his role is not implementation, and,
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
we
Exactly.
don't have the resources right now to implement, which is why there was discussion in the committee. Maybe the best course of action would be to hire a firm to help us get it all together and get it up and running, and then it can be maintained by the folks we hire in the various roles as we go through this process.
Yep.
You know, there's always the alternative, Lynn. We could have myself or Costume. We could get a selfie stick and hold it at the end of the table and just video ourselves and upload it, right?
Or we can get UCIDA T-shirts and
There you-
hats.
There you go. Okay.
That would be fun.
Yeah. I'm glad we can find humor in some of this crazy
We
stuff.
have to.
You know.
We have to.
Okay. All right. Everybody okay with bringing this RFPs to the full board?
I am.
Okay. We don't need a vote on that.
No.
So we're good. Okay. Anything? We're all good here. So I'll ask for an adjournment.
Can I
Yeah.
just-
No. Go ahead,
can I
Lynn.
just wait before we do?
Sh-
Just
sure.
before we do.
Sure.
I think you were copied on the email from Laura Petit.
I was, Lynn. So, so actually, I'll give you a little roundabout. That was pre me coming on. I think that was John Morrow's chairmanship at that time.
It was. 'Cause
And
I
it was prior even to
on the
Randall.
legislature.
So I do.
I was on the legislature.
Yeah, and I
But
do.
I know that everybody was. Go ahead.
No, I do remember what was going on down there when I first came onto the board, and I remember there were some issues with quality control, and some things that were going on that weren't being met. And I personally, after talking to some of the board members back then, they didn't, the new board members, nobody really was 100% happy with what was going on, but there was a need to improve those properties, so it was what it was. But I'd have to, once again, just like the other notes on some other things, we'll have to take a dive into this, and I can get them, and we'll find out all the stuff, and we'll see what kind of. I got to be honest with you, Lynn. I don't know if the clawback revisions were even in that at the time, because I remember coming on with Randall, and Randall got the ball rolling on clawbacks, and it started going from there. And then Chairman Malcolm took control of it, and that's when it really, and the first clawback happened underneath his leadership, at the time. So there were teeth in it, but I don't know where the IDA can come in to make, either send a nasty gram or be punitive on it. I don't know. We'll have to take a hard look at it, So.
Well, we maybe need to have our attorney look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Joe
pull the
will
contract.
remember.
If there were commitments made and not followed through on, we should be sitting on them.
Correct.
They got a really nice pilot on that building, and it was a controversial issue.
Yeah, I agree. I remember catching the tail end of that, and that's why it makes me feel warm and fuzzy that we have that clawback in there, and it's pretty precise and clean, and we explain to all applicants, what the fallout will be if you don't achieve your goals, and I always say, like the project, don't like the project. We always have that silver lining there.
Like we do on the pre-meetings.
Correct. And we don't want to be punitive. We want everybody to succeed. So that's the partnership. But
Absolutely, but maybe we should consider the beginning of the year site visit and call
Yep.
the owner or the development company that put that together, and we should know what our contract is with them.
I don't know if they have a bond. I don't know. I don't believe they have a pilot. I think they have a bond.
I thought they have a pilot. I think they might have a pilot. It was very controversial. I was in the legislature. I think it was like my first year.
Okay. Yeah, let's.
I vaguely remember. I remember Hector was going crazy over this.
Yeah.
Because he felt that the IDA's policies did not provide for this. There was a lot of controversy. I remember that. It was a bit of a confusing time. But
I do remember.
I think we should follow up what our agreement is, if there were conditions in that agreement, and then following up with a visit to see if those conditions were met. And I'd like to be able to respond to Laura, unless you want to, Mike,
Yeah.
that we're looking into this and we'll get back with a plan.
Yeah, and I really do believe we need to touch base with Joe at this point. I don't know where all these boxes of files are. They're in the basement here. They've got to
Yeah.
be in there,
Yeah.
you know? But I
Right.
do know
Well, and
when it
Joe-
hit.
Joe's been the constant, so Joe is going to remember this, I'm sure.
Yeah, Joe is, he does. Joe remembers
Yeah.
where he hit his first quarter for his communion money. So, you know,
There you go.
we'll be good. Okay.
It's good to have a lawyer that remembers
But
that.
yeah,
Was he
I was
representing the
I was
CID
actually
then?
gonna reach out to you because I seen you on there also, you know what I mean? And I seen her concern. I could tell in the tone of the email, so.
Yeah. No, and I want to be able to respond. I don't want to have it hit.
Yeah, and I
lingering
think
out
my
there.
steps were gonna be, you know what? I was gonna refer it over to the chair a little bit and let the chair reach out to Joe and then, you know, but I do know what you mean. You know Laura good, I know Laura good, I see her all the time. You know, you do wanna let her know that we know what's going on, we're aware of it, and we're looking into it, you know? And,
Exactly.
and we'll flow
Exactly.
it. I think right now we take the safe out. We flow it through the chair, okay? Because I don't want to speak on
I
something.
already forwarded it to Diane over the weekend.
Okay.
So just so you know.
Okay, good.
Because she sent it, I thought it was addressed to me and you were CC'd, so I kind of took action.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and we'll circle around. We'll circle around with Joe here and get the lay of the land on that. Okay.
Great.
I hope it's not a bond.
Yeah, I'll follow up with her and let her know we're looking into it because it was all prior to any of us, and we're gonna get to the bottom of it. And with the holidays, we don't anticipate being able to do anything until the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and if Malcolm will know too. You know, if we need to reach out to Jimmy, he knows. He was on the board for what, 10 or 11 years. So.
Yeah, he was there under Morrow too.
Yeah, he was there under John. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, good. All right, so we have a plan on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. No problem. Anybody got anything else?
Nothing.
Motion for adjournment?
I'll
Thank you.
move it.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Lynn. Take care.